3 now. There are many deaths, tragic divorces, etc. The following is the most tragic story among my friends. A girl that I was close to from kindergarten through graduation and stayed in touch with afterwards. She married in her 30s and had trouble conceiving children. She spent 8 years and thousands of dollars in order to get pregnant. She was told it wasn't going to happen. 1 week after the doctor confirmed her only pregnancy in all that time, she was diagnosed with an aggressive brain tumor. She died 3 weeks after her beautiful son was born. The wild child girl that ended up married with 2 beautiful kids and set in life only to be killed in an accident with a street racer at 30. How awful. Was she in the car with the racer or the racer hit her? The racer hit her doing over 100 miles an hour on a neighborhood street. I'm mid-40s and at primary school, ages 4-11, was very friendly with a group of other girls. Called D, capital T, and A. As well as our time together at school, we spent our evenings and weekends together. And I have happy memories of long summer holidays playing at each other's homes. D became very sick aged 11 and died of leukemia a year later. T died aged 21 in a car crash with her fiancé. He was driving them home late one night when he lost control of the car and it left the road. All 4 occupants of the car were killed. I'm married and although I haven't seen her in years, I keep up with news of her via my mum. Last summer my mum phoned me in tears to say that A's 12-year-old son had hanged himself in his bedroom after being the victim of bullying at school. My poor, beautiful friends. I feel so sad for the suffering each of them has endured. I occasionally see D's dad and I can't begin to describe the pain in his eyes, knowing that D never got the chance to grow up. Kid from my school was an amazing musician. He won every possible award for music at the regional state level. Then got a full scholarship to a prestigious music school. Freshman year, he died of a brain aneurysm in his sleep. My friend finished university, was about to earn his PhD, got out of an abusive relationship, but finally found a nice girl. And then they died together in a car crash. Nothing in this thread really got to me. It all kinda struck as the usual universe has no justice fair. But, for some reason, posts like this always get to me. It's so nice they found each other and got to be together. But they still died. Like, that sucks. I don't know. Dude I actually went to public school with in the first place. Met his one love in grade 9. They near immediately started dating. Attended university near one another. Lived together. The works. They get married. Have 2 kids. Great jobs. Everything just lined up perfectly until he died suddenly of heart failure. Not sure which is more tragic, his passing, or her moving on with 2 kids under 5 without him. This might sound cold, but it sounds like he lived a pretty full life and got to accomplish things that many don't in his personal life, so it isn't all bad. Girl I had a huge crush on in 11th grade. Got pregnant at 17. Missed graduation. Baby dies the day after they bring it home from the hospital. Her boyfriend dies in an alcohol-related car accident a week later. She heals herself the next day. A girl I knew. Super sweet and very motivated to help others. She became a counselor for people in need and drug addicts. Then died of ridiculously rare cancer in her mid-20s. She was better than most of us. And her death is proof there is no justice in the universe. I think we have enough proof already. I wish the universe would just stop providing it now. I knew this girl. She got knocked up. Life was a big joke and a party and a game and she smoked and drank and it drew Gus all through the pregnancy. Last I heard she and her boyfriend were living in a tent. I don't know what became of the baby. He was screwed before he was even born. Poor bastard. I hate her for that. Her and this other chick I knew who kinda did the same stupid shit. I'm toking for 2. She'd gleefully say as she took a huge bong hit. A bit different than the death ones. Almost my entire graduating class attended an evangelical Christian high school, no alternate schools in the area, and most of them wound up married young, uneducated. living paycheck to paycheck. Unhappy because they aren't the same people at 35 they were at 18 and are stuck with partners who have nothing in common with them. Consequently, I don't attend reunions. My lifelong bully. From early childhood till she dropped out of high school ended up living a very short, tragic life. She made my life a living hell. She would jump me and harass me and terrorize me on a daily basis for years. She died of a gastro bleed in her apartment. She was there, alone, dead, for about 6 weeks. The apartment manager finally broke in and found her and her 3-month-old baby dead on the floor when she wouldn't answer the phone calls about rent being so late. She bled out. She died of internal bleeding. Her baby starved. No one had smelled anything due to the way the flats were set up. No one came looking for her except her landlord. Nick Denhat. Hell of a ball player. Works his ass off all his life to realize his dream of becoming a major league pitcher. Finally realizes that dream. Starts his first game. And is held by a drunk driver a few hours later. Rest in peace, Nick. I remember this well. I was at the game he threw that night. If memory serves me right, the kid that hit him was just blasted drunk and got something like 50 years to life. One girl had hydrocephalus. She was a nice girl. Quiet. And always seemed to be sick. I was kind of friends with her past graduation. And whenever I was on AIM we would chat a little bit. She always seemed to be getting ready for another surgery. Or just had one. On top of that, her personal life was rough. Around 5 relatives of hers died within a span of 3 years. She died aged 22 from complications. I wanted to go to the funeral. But it happened while I was across the country. What a sad, shitty way to go. Our valedictorian dropped out of college due to his rich parents dying in a tragic accident and through a series of lawsuits on the estate by business partners. Had pretty much nothing left to him. So he moved to northern rural Illinois and works at a factory or a warehouse place. I hear about him through my sister. He has a stable life but is still incredibly depressed. Can't blame him. Poor guy. A buddy of mine was worried that he wouldn't get into any colleges, so on a whim he signed his life away to the Marines. A few weeks after enlisting he receives acceptance letters from every school he applied to. He has a miserable time in the military but makes it home after 4 years or so. He was a different guy after he came back. One weekend he plans a get together at his house and doesn't invite anyone till the day of. No one is able to make it. A few days later, after a dumb disagreement with his dad, he goes in his backyard and shoots himself. Maybe it was PTSD or some form of depression, but he was loved by his family and loved by us. It's something my friends and I will never understand. Kid I'd known most of my life found his mom's body after she committed suicide when he was a kid. It obviously messed him up and he wrestled with depression his whole life. But the thing was, he was a great guy and everyone loved him. He was just a mess on the inside. 6 months after graduating from college, he healed himself. My school had a guy die like 3 hours after graduation. They were drunk, stoned and who knows what else. Somehow they ended up with a gum and we're trying to spin it on their fingers or some shit and the gum ended up firing. Hit the guy right in the head. The guy that used to bully me in elementary school ended up getting testicular cancer. I think he's still alive, but last I heard he wasn't doing well at all. We're only 25. Dunno if tragic, but definitely noteworthy. The guy who I got kicked out of our high school prom with for taking as a date. Gay dates were a no-no in the 90s. Died a few years back. The guy had apparently been doing it loads of methadone and Xanax, which is supposed to heal you, but that wasn't what healed him. We were all astounded to learn that he in fact died from an actually medicinal prescription drug he was on reacted badly with some Sudafed he took. Crazy sheet. Also, the cute innocent Christian girl I always thought was pretty and would have died to be with. She ended up basically becoming a child support seeker. And has had 3 kids by 3 different fathers who all pay her child support. Conversely, the girl who used to openly brag about blowing multiple guys went to college with me. Graduated. And is about to open her own law firm. Went to a small prep school in CT with a graduating class of 51. There was 3-4 black kids in our school, I'm Indian. BTW, who were recruited to play sports. One of these kids, let's call him Ty, was an awesome dude who was popular, athletic, and just a nice guy all around. He came from a working class family and was the first person in his family to go to college. 2 years in, he fails out by just not going to class. He comes back home and tries to make it as a rapper. He was horrible and didn't have any success in that. One day, I see an article in the local paper that he's been arrested for stalking a woman in the street and exposing himself to her. A few months later, he's caught doing the same thing in the local library. It was quiet for a couple years after. Then a friend texts me an article that he was arrested twice in 3 days for exposing himself to 2 different women. Both senior citizens. They showed his mugshot and he looked homeless. I spoke to a mutual acquaintance and from what I've heard, Ty doesn't think he needs help and his family doesn't believe in modern medicine. Are most likely to succeed, has 4 kids with 2 different women. Has been arrested for domestic violence. Is on his 2nd marriage and left his first bride to be at the altar. Lost his house to foreclosure. Lives in a trailer. And cannot hold down a job for more than 2 years. One of mine, year below though, had her entire family, including extended family, murdered by one of her cousins. For whatever reason she stayed at a friend's house the night they were all murdered at her house. Probably the star athlete who had a truck come off its blocks and crush him to death less than 2 years after graduation. MySpace and Facebook were starting to get popular. And he'd show up in my suggested friends a lot. His page was filled with his friends leaving messages about how they still thought of him. A couple years after graduation they found a good friend of mine with his truck in a ditch and wandering around in a daze. They took him in for a wee but ended up not charging him because he hadn't been drinking. Turned out to be a brain tumor. He initially responded to chemo and went into remission. A few years later it came back with a vengeance and took his life. One of my best friends from high school worked her ass off to help support her mom and sisters during high school. She helped raise her deadbeat cousin's daughter. She took honors classes and was our student president. Among other extracurriculars. She stayed at home to go to a community college. Received her associates. Then moved about an hour away to go to a state university for her bachelor's. Toward the end of her first year at the uni, she died in a tornado. A good portion of my graduating class is addicted to or died from heroin. So any of them probably. There was a kid in my class whom I didn't know too well. I saw him in the news one day shot dead from defending his little brother from bullies. Tragic way to go. I remember him being a smart kid. One guy who was an average kid in school but joined the military and was doing really well, getting promoted and shit. And then he broke his back during a training accident and got medical doubt. Now he's stuck doing shitty fast food jobs. He just lost his mother a few months ago to an illness. A few grades ahead of me there was a girl who was wicked smart and talented. She played several sports. Was in band. Won a Louis Armstrong Jazz Award. Member of the chess team. Math league. Remembered 1027 digits of pi. etc. Graduated college. Escaped the Midwest. Married her wife. And then she dies in her sleep on Thanksgiving from a brain aneurysm at 26. I just looked back at her obituary. And got so mad that the universe took such a gifted person away from this world. Guy who was behind me in alphabetical order, and therefore had a locker next to me all through high school, got arrested the summer after graduation for fondling a 6-year-old. Chris was a Marine who survived multiple combat deployments only to die outside his barracks room in North Carolina. Right before he was about to deploy for a 3rd time, his girlfriend and parents came down to visit him. Him and his girlfriend got drunk and began to argue at a bar, so he walked back to his room. He got to his door and couldn't find his key, so he punched his glass window out of frustration. He punched the window so hard he fell through, slicing his arm almost completely off from his armpit to his shoulder. 2 other Marines were outside smoking and witnessed the entire thing. They attempted to stop the bleeding, but he cut right through a major artery. Later it was revealed that his room key was in his pocket the entire time. A lot of people tried throwing his girlfriend under the bus and blaming it on her, but in reality Chris was a drunk who was possibly suffering from PTSD.